How's it going, everybody? This is my first attempt at a video blog, so here goes. It is February 22nd, 2011. I'm going to try to make this a weekly thing, just give my thoughts on certain things. A couple things, Survivor Redemption Island, I'll do a recap of that every week and my opinions, thoughts on that. As well, we'll do a little bit of overrated, underrated. It could be music, could be movies, TV, film, politicians, could be any of that stuff, so we'll give that a shot as well. I'll have my top five. It'll be top five of pretty much in the same vein. Anything. Could be top five foods. Could be top five anything. So this week's going to be top five 80s action movies. And we're going to get into that at the end. So I'll start actually with Survivor Redemption Island, which started last week. Interesting show. Everybody seems to be talking about the tribal council, where Philip pretty much outed Christina and told everyone she had an immunity idol. I don't know what to make of Philip. I don't know if it's an act. Of course, he claims to be a former federal agent, which was a running joke throughout the entire episode. Now, it would make sense, and I'm not sure. Everybody seemed to pal up to Boston Rob. It would make sense to vote him out, but it's also kind of obvious that the fact that they voted Francesca out means she's coming back. I don't think I've ever seen a first episode of their Survivor season where they focused so hard on a character and voted them out. Usually the strong personalities and characters that they're focused on remain in the game for a long period of time, but she was voted out early, and you know she's coming back. They built a feud with Philip, and obviously they're going to bring her back. Russell, I love Russell. Loved him in Samoa. Loved him in Heroes vs. Villains. Still too early. It's only one episode in, so I'll reserve judgment on that. Boston Rob, you get what you get with him. He plays the hero and the villain equally, I think. A lot of people were coming into this season were calling him a hero. I still consider him a villain, and just not a big fan of him. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll see how long those two remain in the game. I'm under the impression they're going to remain in for a while because it seems to be centered around them, obviously, coming into this year. So, very good for this week. We'll see what Redemption Island brings for Francesca. And that'll be on tomorrow night, the 22nd on CBS. So next up we'll do a little bit of overrated, underrated. I'll do music this week. Overrated. Now, everything's personal opinion, right? Obviously, now she sold millions of records. She's become an icon to many people. Overrated this week is Lady Gaga. Now, she has catchy music. I will not argue with that point. I just find, much like Alanis Morissette, it seems forced to me. Her whole persona, her whole gimmick, it seems very forced, and it's just I'm just sick of her, to be honest with you. I guess anything like you just get overkill. And oddly enough, I'm not sick of Justin Bieber yet, which is kind of weird. Although that performance in the Celebrity All-Star Game where he was voted MVP was a complete joke. He was on the losing team and scored like 8 points. Of course, you can't really vote like Scottie Pippen MVP of the Celebrity Game. So that kind of made sense. But overrated this week for me is Lady Gaga. Underrated for me this week, very underrated in my opinion, a hip-hop artist, Common. He's been around for a long time. He's been rapping for a long time out of Chicago, and back in the day when he was known as Common Sense. One of my favorite tracks by him was Soul by the Pound, which was awesome, which featured the Q-Tip sample, and very big fan of his. Obviously, he's still around, still doing well, and acting now as well. So, underrated this week, Common. Check out some of his tracks, YouTube, iTunes, and yeah. So actually, I'll move the cheap plug till the end, and we'll go on to top five. So this week is top five action movies of the 80s, which is when I grew up, started watching a lot of movies, still do to this day. Now, these are in no particular order, so we'll start out with number five, which is Predator. Predator, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, obviously, and just a nice. It's pretty a simple premise. A bunch of badasses go into, I believe it's the Nicaraguan jungle, to get back a lost team of government officials, and they stumble upon an alien predator. I just so many memorable lines from this movie. Jesse Ventura as Blaine was awesome. Bill Duke um, as well. Just a really good action movie in my opinion. I enjoyed it thoroughly and still do to this day. Once again, as is the case with most things, the sequel with Danny Glover not so good. Um, Literally the only thing I think I remember from, I think was a memorable moment in that movie was when near the end of the film when he was in the Predator's ship. They showed the alien head, and I still remember seeing that and then thinking, oh my god, here comes Alien versus Predator, and it did, unfortunately. So next up on top five 80s action movies, Die Hard. And again, this is in no real order because this is probably my number one. But Bruce Willis, 1987, I believe, if memory serves correctly. Now, memorable performance by, of course, Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber. That's my first time seeing him, I believe, and it's like one of those other things. Like whenever you see them in other roles, you say, "Oh man, what's Hans Gruber doing there? Why is Hans Gruber teaching Harry Potter magic?" That's one of the things. That's one of the things I find a lot with movies. I remember seeing Black Hawk Down for the first time and noting like, "Oh my God, the Hulk's such a badass. He's in Somalia." Because Eric Bana, of course, was in both the original Hulk, the Ang Lee Hulk, which was critically panned, and Black Hawk Down, among other films. And another actor whose name slips my mind, and I apologize for that, but the villain in Kindergarten Cop was in Black Hawk Down as well, playing Dan Bush, who was one of the few survivors off the first Black Hawk helicopter crash. And if you want to know some things about him, listen to the commentary on Black Hawk Down. Another top five I'll be doing sometime is top five DVD commentaries, which that will be in it because it is amazing if you listen to it, done by some of the veterans of the Somali conflict. Definitely take a listen to that. You will not be disappointed. Um, Moving on to the third one, Aliens. You can say it's science fiction, that's fine, but it's still an action movie, an incredible action movie directed by James Cameron. Went on to do Titanic, Avatar, low budget independent films. It's Alien was like I look back, I saw Aliens first. I did not see Alien until probably about 1992, 93. Um, Obviously, after seeing Aliens, which is very fast paced, going back to Alien, which is very slow paced, for me, I enjoyed Aliens a lot more. Again, another one of those quotable films. You hear a lot of quotes. It's parodied in video games, other films, things like that. So Aliens, check it out if you haven't. Shame on you. So the next one up, um, many people classify this as a comedy, starring Mr. Patrick Swayze and Mr. Sam Elliott and the Jeff Healey Band. It's Roadhouse. Now, Roadhouse tells the story of a bouncer who gets hired to clean up. I believe it's in Missouri, but he gets hired to clean up a bar and is thwarted by the evil sort of evil mayor owner sort of person of this town, Brad Wesley, and very again, another quotable action, humorous film. And for any wrestling fans out there, Terry Funk is one of the hired thugs. Always good to have wrestlers as hired thugs in movies. And my fifth favorite action movie from the 80s, Red Dawn. If you have not seen this, 1984, centered around a Midwestern town that is taken over by the Russians and is the prelude to World War III. And a bunch of high school kids end up going into the hills and pretty much starting a revolution against these Russian soldiers. Um, very odd premise. Not sure it could ever happen, but it's very worth the check out. And weird how the first time I can remember, Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze were both in Red Dawn, and they, of course, both appeared in Dirty Dancing. It's kind of weird. You can just see the director going, "Wow, such romantic and sexual chemistry with Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze in Red Dawn. Let's make a romantic comedy about them, or a romantic movie about them." Yeah, Dirty Dancing and me don't get along, so that's one of those 80s films of top 5 most hated 80s films. Dirty Dancing will be on there. And the last thing we're going to try to do every week is called My Cheap Plug. And I will just pretty much mention whether it be a podcast or a website or a video blog or a blog, web comic, whatever it happens to be. And just direct you to it and tell you a little bit about it and tell you why I like it. This week, I would be remiss if I didn't mention it first because it is my number one favorite podcast. It's the Byte Radio podcast, based off of Byte Television, which is Rogers 106, where I am, and it's pretty much centered around 3-4 guys who live in the Toronto area, and they work in various levels of the television industry in Toronto. It was started, the incarnation as it is now was started in 2009. Originally centered around, I think, 5 or 6 guys called the Wingmen. The remaining people who are on this podcast now, Jason Agnew, who's a host, producer, works at Byte Television, hosts a show called The Conventioneers, which you may have heard of. That's on Byte Television as well, also on Byte.ca. And Justin Terry, who's a director, among other things, right, Justin? Yeah. John Pollock, who's an on-air reporter, producer for radio shows for the Fight Network, and Rob Scott, who is a newly single young lad from South Africa who does graphic design and actually works for the blog for Byte Television on Byte.ca. Check that out as well. A lot of good pieces on there. But yeah, it's just if a lot of it has a lot of in jokes a lot of the time too. So I wouldn't say go back to episode 101, but listen to some of the older episodes, especially the Valentine's Day episode, the anti-Valentine's Day episode. It's a classic one, and their best worst ofs for the years, whether it be 2009 or 2010. Listen to it. They're very good. Whether you agree with them or not, they're just funny to listen to. And it's pretty much just 4 friends talking about their week and what they did, and it's as simple as that. And I enjoy it. I have met them. I've gone out for drinks with them. They're really nice guys, and they put on a great podcast every week. So check that out. That's my cheap plug this week. I will talk to you all next week. I hope you enjoyed this first episode, and thanks a lot for looking. And comment, negative, positive. It's all good. It just means people are watching. So we'll talk to you later. Take it easy.